The Conscious Man.
Welcome to another episode of the podcast.
What is a conscious man?
Uncle Bruce.
Here we are.
Bruce McFarland. Welcome to the podcast.
Thanks. I guess we'll see.
Man, we got a lot of shit going on the past couple of years. Past year especially. So the podcast is called The Conscious Man. So I always ask my guests, what does it mean to you to be a conscious man?
It's interesting. I would answer that question totally different a year ago. Conscious man. Probably a man that can differentiate himself from the physical world and knows where he starts and it starts. And the difference between, the space in between. To learn there is space, I guess, is when I feel like I understood consciousness finally.
And that there's a difference.
Yeah, and I think there's levels too. I mean, there's different levels of consciousness. People are always semi-conscious to a point. But I think you have to, fully conscious is something different than starting to wake up. Do you think we just come like, ta-da, you're conscious?
No, I don't. No, not at all. I think it's a zoom out and zoom in process, and it's like like kind of what you were talking about is like, I like that idea of like coming to the awareness, because this is kind of like a flip of a switch, especially for a lot of guys in the world today, is like when you realize that you are not the illusion of your ego, of your matrix self.
Yeah,
right?
Ego's part of it.
That you are something much more, that you are the observer.
Well, separate.
Yeah, separate and also completely connected.
Right. But you got to realize there's a space.
Right.
The subconscious space or the unspace, no space, whatever you want to call it.
Right. So, okay, the past year. Should we go back?
Yeah, let's start. Start at the beginning.
So, I guess I could start by telling kind of like my end of the story that I haven't really opened up about like publicly. But about 2.5 years ago for me, I was started getting into the Wim Hof method about 4 or 5 years ago. And to me at the time, it was just a breathing technique, and I just really liked doing it because it made me feel good. I wasn't fully aware of why, but moved into my new house about, it's been 3 years now? I think about 3. No, I'm coming up on 4 years. So I moved into my new house. It was this big, beautiful house that like I thought was gonna like validate me in so many ways, because spent a bunch of money on it. Moved into this house, and I'd been there for maybe about 6 months, and all the dopamine had worn off at this point. So this was kind of like the beginning of like this whole awakening for me, where I remember one day I was sitting in my house, and I'm kind of just like looking around. And I'm like, this is it? Like, this is it. Like, I thought this house was going to, like, completely change my life. And it was going to completely change the way that people looked at me. And it was going to, like, validate me in this huge way that obviously I was seeking for outside of myself. And so this was kind of like a little bit of the beginning of this awakening process. And about 6 to 9 months after this, I've got my sauna in my house where I'm doing regular breath work, right? So I usually would get in there anywhere from 2 to 4 times a week, get in, sit in there for 30 minutes, listen to music, and then the last 10 minutes, I drop into the Wim Hof method and, do the whole hold, the release, and then usually I would just like feel really good. But this one particular day it was actually January of 22, so about 2.5 years ago. And I drop into the Wim Hof method, do the hold, do the release, and next thing I know, I'm in another place. I usually, like, when I'm telling this story, I usually, like, think of, like, that big, like, silo like you would see in, like, X-Men or, like, Star Wars or something. And I'm on this platform, and all of a sudden there's this, like, short little being standing in front of me.
Oh, yeah.
Right? And I haven't opened up. I haven't told a lot of people about this because, you know, it sounds fucking crazy, but...
Female, male?
He was a male. He was like a little extraterrestrial, right? Like what you would think of like a gray. Right. And so he starts communicating with me telepathically. And he tells me, we are here to prepare you.
Dang, I thought you were going
for something. So he says, we are here to prepare you. And so I'm like, okay. Like, I don't know. What? And
I'd rather be pro.
Right? And this is all like, it's all telepathic, right? So he's just communicating with me. He's like, we are here. We are a collective. We are here to prepare you for something important. And so the first thought that comes to my mind is like, oh shit, you know? I thought like, oh, something bad in my life is going to happen, and I need to be ready. You know, it was kind of the first thing. And so I just kind of asked him a little bit more, like, who are you? You know, what is the purpose of this? And he basically said, we are a collective, and we are masters of duality, and we are going to teach you about the darkness. And that was where I was kind of like, okay,
the duality being dark and light.
Right.
Conscious.
Yeah, because at the time, you know, I was raised in the church, and I feel like I understood the light. I understood joy and happiness.
Their definition of it.
Yeah, for sure. But it's interesting because about a year before this, I was on this podcast with Keaton and another guy, and the other guy looked at me and he said, how do you deal with depression? And I looked at him and I'm like, I don't deal with depression. I've never had depression, you know, because I was a very optimistic person. I was raised to be optimistic in a suppressing way, you know, and it was great. It was
optimism and what do you say?
Yeah, it's optimism can be a form of bypassing for a lot of people, you know, and so you're taught to just always, you know, because obviously
so you're
my childhood
glossing over the issue, acting like it's okay.
Yeah, really laughing in dark times instead of like, you know, which was perfect in its own way with everything that we had to deal with my dad and my mom, and I was just taught to be optimistic, to laugh at the hard times and just get through it with a smile on your face, which again was perfect at the time, and I'm super grateful for the whole experience that I went through and everything it taught me. But I never felt like I had dealt with like negative self-talk or depression in that sense. And so then I have this experience with this being, right? And he tells me like, we're going to be preparing you for something difficult. The first thing that popped in my mind was, oh, my mom's going to die.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Which to me, like I look back and I'm like, okay, yeah, I can
was your first big trauma.
I can easily connect to when I was 5 years old. And I didn't even think about this at the time, but now, you know, I was 5 years old when my parents told me that my mom had cancer. And so, you know, obviously it takes me to one of my first big traumas. So this is in January. I meet this being, and he tells me they're going to be preparing me. February, I'm at the gym with my buddy, and I tear my rotator cuff. Benching, being stupid.
225.
315. I always wanted to put up 3 plates, and I didn't warm up because I was just like, if I warm up, I'm not going to be able to get it. So anyways, tear my rotator cuff. March, a couple weeks later, I have surgery, And that surgery dropped me into fucking dark night of the soul. Like, I really got to know depression. Like, sent me in a downward spiral that realistically.
So right in the middle of COVID too, though, right? Like 22.
Well, it was after COVID. Yeah, I mean.
So the end of it, 22, 23.
Yeah, it was the beginning of 2022. So yeah, I mean, COVID was still doing its thing, but I didn't give a shit really about that. But sent me down in this fucking downward spiral of negative self-talk, of like seeing all these patterns come up in my life, of like, quite honestly, for about 2 years, like waking up most days not wanting to be alive. And this whole time I'm doing my sessions in the sauna, and I feel like I'm like receiving all this information, because now I'm like, I have to fix this, you know, because I've always been a seeker. I've always wanted to know more about myself. I've always felt drawn to like feel my emotions and understand them. And so over this whole time, I'm just learning all this shit. And I feel like it's literally them giving me this information. And they took me through this whole process of like, actually, you know, I had a few visions of seeing this like Spartan king that was like helping bring up men through this boot camp process, the Agoge process, teaching these men about their emotions and how to channel them. And so I'm like starting to like practice a little bit of this, and I can feel the pull from this life that I've built with this business that I have that's a great business that, you know, I don't have to work that much, and I start to feel this pull towards working with men. You know, I really, a year before we started the men's group, I knew that that's what I was supposed to do, and I fought the shit out of it. Because you remember, you know, 2.5 years ago, I was very closed off, angry.
Fat.
Well, still there. So, you know, over the course of about 1.5 years, these beings are like communicating with me. They're giving me information. I'm learning all about like the darkness within myself, you know, in a way that I never had before, because I just never
felt like you'd had depression before.
Never.
I mean, this was totally
new. Like literally 1 year before this, I was on a podcast and the guy was like, "How do you deal with depression?" I was like, "Oh, what?"
So you didn't recognize you'd had it before. This was a new experience.
Yeah, it was. Well, in a sense, I think it was just an awakening. You know, that those dark emotions, they were always there, right? I just had pushed them down so deep that I.
Right. So what brought them to the surface? I mean, was it just your attention you brought them, or you were paying attention?
I think it was just that light of consciousness of like, as we're here, we shine more light on what's inside of us. We get to know ourselves on a deeper level, and at some point, that shit has to come up and it has to be faced.
Does it always have to be negative?
Well,
because basically what I'm hearing is if you reach a certain level of consciousness, you're going to have to deal with some negative shit you've never dealt with. But could there be something that is not as negative or as dark that you haven't dealt with? That wouldn't be so.
I think it's all of it too, right? Like for me, it was just understanding the things that I was labeling them as negative, you know, because ultimately there's no such thing as negative emotions.
That makes sense. So you're just dealing with some stuff you hadn't dealt with before, or not dealing with some stuff that was there.
Yeah, well, dealing with some stuff that I hadn't previously dealt with, that I hadn't previously processed. You know, emotions that I felt just got pushed down.
Grief?
Yeah, there was a lot of grief, but I felt like for me, a lot of it was anger, you know? And I think at least at the beginning, you know, and I still have anger come up, obviously, because I'm a man, but I mean, yeah, probably more grief. I think because the grief lies underneath the anger.
Must be the same in that context. I've had this. It'd be very.
Yeah, they are in a sense, because for me, like it's a little bit more okay for a man to be angry than it is for him to be sad,
especially for a long time.
Yeah, for sure. So, anyways, I'm in this fucking spiral, but I'm also learning. And the interesting thing was that because I had this being communicate with me and I felt like I was in contact and that I was being prepared for something, I held on to that. I really held on to that I knew where this was going somewhere. This wasn't for nothing. And even though I was waking up every day basically not wanting to be there, I knew that I was going through a process that was necessary to build me into something more, to do something bigger. And that was also a big part of the difficulty for me, was knowing that this life that I had built was almost being stripped away in a sense to birth something bigger.
Yeah, you need to start over. It's all that work, everything you thought you succeeded with, it meant nothing. Or typically, it was worthless.
I mean,
they're not worthless, but for what you wanted and what you held value in.
Right, for what I held value in, which for me was...
That's what you'd been taught, and told, go do this, make a lot of money, you'll be successful, you'll be happy, you'll be
it was
not depressed.
Deeply coded within me to put a man's value on how much money he makes. And so for me, like that whole process of like buying that house and like, becoming all this thing, like making this money in this business, and then all of a sudden I'm there and it's like, what? This is it? The hole is still there.
But it was vital that you had that drive.
I think so.
Because, I mean, really, the type of men that we attract are all drivers. I mean, I won't say they're all that epitome of financial success, but they're definitely going to get there.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know one of the guys in our group that's not either there or, they're just a matter of time.
Yeah, and that was kind of just part of my process, and I see it. I see these guys chasing money too, and I'm just like, yeah, like go chase the money, because that was such a necessary part of my process to get to the point when I was like, oh shit, this isn't it. This can't be number one, right? And there's nothing wrong with chasing money. I still love money. I love the idea of the freedom that it can bring. But the fact that I was chasing it in order to get that outside validation.
Did you redefine it? What it meant to you? Or what it was?
See, that was a fucking 2-year process of like that just like being stripped away from me. And it was like I was holding on so fucking tightly to it that I felt like just a tearing away of my identity in so many ways.
Once you got it, you had to hang on to it, or you're going to lose it.
Yeah.
Or make more of it.
Yeah, once you get it, it's almost like you're even more stressed about you're more imprisoned.
That's what they say.
So this got to a point where, I mean, it spiraled pretty low to the point where, even though I knew that this was going somewhere, this has definitely been the most difficult part of my life. In so many ways. And I'm having these visions about this Spartan, and I know where this is leading. I know that I'm supposed to work with men at some point. And then about a year ago, you called me.
Yeah.
So why don't you tell that part of the story?
Oh, I was crushing it. 100 pounds overweight, drinking every day, spending my mortgage basically on liquor, whiskey. Yeah, I was fucking killing it. It kind of been an accumulation of 10 years of that, and I was pretty high functioning, obviously, but it got to a point I'd actually slowed down and was trying to get some shit together. But the universe says, look, we're done fucking around. It's time. And I lost my job completely unexpected. We were having a great year. I just got a great raise. I mean, I knew why I got fired, but I kind of thought what I was doing was enough. It had been enough for them for a long time. So I wasn't doing my job up to my full capacity, but I was doing it enough, enough to make them successful, which I've been doing for a lot of years, for 25 years, So I lost my job in that, and really being in that frame of mind where I thought I was at a point in my life where I was starting to get my shit together. I was really Vicky quit drinking a couple years before that, so she'd been subconsciously pushing me to stop, but I was stubborn because I enjoyed it. I truly just enjoyed the liquor and getting drunk. Well, I enjoyed the distraction from my real issues. And it was just completely that. It would shut my mind off and give me the ability to coast through life and not understand what I need to know about the space and the difference between me and a conscious man.
Right.
So they said, listen, asshole, it's time. And everything I thought was success and I thought that I had earned was taken away from me. At the time, and that was also the accumulation. My house was still up in the air with the court case with my ex-wife. So I really didn't know if I was going to lose my house. And that was, we were told it would be a couple months we'd know. So in my mind at that time, I'm like, well, okay. It did get my attention. And I was far enough along the path to say, okay, Bruce, listen up. They're trying to tell you something. So I'm like, all right, what else can they take? And the only thing I had really was my house, which is important to me. I raised my kids there.
Yeah.
And I could give it up. It wouldn't be a big deal. But that was, again, at the time, my frame of reference, that was my one thing that I had kept. I've been there 25 years. I raised my kids there. Tons of awesome memories, my house. It was a hub for all my kids' friends growing up. We had great times.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and I think I came and talked to you about, I think I lost my job on a Tuesday. I think I came and talked to you on Wednesday or Thursday. Yeah, no, it was. In fact, you were the first person I talked to that next day.
Yeah.
So you took me to lunch, and you said something pretty, still to this day, is kind of one of my guiding themes that I think about all the time. But you said, have faith, put your foot down, and there'll be a stepping stone to step on. Don't worry if you can't see it, it'll be there. And that was amazing because at the time, we didn't have a savings. I did.
Yeah.
I was as fucked. I lost my job before, but I always had plenty of money. I could go 4 or 5 months without working. It wasn't a big deal. I don't want to say enjoyed it. It was a mini vacation.
Yeah.
This one, within about a month, no grocery money, no gas money, no mortgage money, no nothing. So that being said, that was before I knew how bad it was going to get. I thought I'd bounce back and have a job in a couple weeks. Tons of work. I'm at the level where I had, tons of experience, 25 plus years experience, always pretty successful, and it's safety. A drunk monkey can do it. That's how I feel most of the time. Nothing. I wasn't getting calls back. I wasn't, nobody wanted any part of me, which was interesting because I've always, just for fun, applied for jobs, mainly out of my ego, just to see what my value was, where it was out in the market. Even when I'm totally content with my job, I'll apply for jobs and take interviews just because I like practicing on the interviews, and also, it fed my ego to know that just in case if I wanted to say, fuck you, I'm out, I'd have somewhere to go. So this was the first time that I literally felt no options. I literally had no idea. And that it was needed. I needed to be, they cliche, you find rock bottom. But I seriously had to settle down and figure out what I was going to do. Not what I was going to do. I was going to figure out who I was going to be. Because I had a choice. Either I was going to be the same unconscious man that I had been for 52 years of my life to a point. And there's points where I think I've reached elevated levels of consciousness, and I could have taken that step, but never did.
Yeah.
I always pulled myself back for whatever reason. Circumstance were right, or I wasn't ready, or whatever, because it's a leap of faith. It truly is. When you truly put your hands into the principles that you're learning, and you actually have to put them to work and figure out if they do work, and there's consequences. It matters. And this was the first time in my life where that was it. I had to figure out, one, if I truly believed what I'd been. I hadn't been talking much about it, but I had to definitely been spending the time and putting the effort in and trying to figure out my core beliefs and what was going to motivate and what I was going to live according to. Whether it was the same or it was different, and it was different.
Yeah.
And I wish I could have said it was by my choice. And I look back in my life, and there's a lot of times where I've been too much of a coward to do it on my own, and I've had to be pushed by the universe. And this was definitely one of them. I could have done this all, 10 years before I had options and or opportunities. I look back and I like, oh yeah, that's what that was. I was given the chance. I was being shown there were options, there were things I could do and things I could learn. And I was too busy not being conscious. I was too busy drinking and numbing everything and the voices in my head. I wanted them to go away, and they went away for a long time.
Yeah.
Until they didn't.
Yeah, so you came to me and we had a really good talk, and I mean, it's really easy for me to look at it from an outside perspective and tell you, hey, I see that you can't see 1 inch in front of you, but you just got to keep walking, because that was kind of the thing I told you, is like the universe is asking you to trust it right now. And, I just kind of started to learn that a little bit for myself, because so much had been stripped away from me that I kept feeling that the universe was just like, I'm taking you somewhere, just trust me.
I've always been on the verge. I've always been 1 foot in, 1 foot out, and it'd been enough for me. I knew I had some gifts. I knew I had some abilities, and just knowing that was enough. I never needed to flex a muscle. I don't know why. It was never. Well, I do know why. It's a community thing. A lot of times when you feel alone, if you don't know there's people out there like you. And I had your mom, my sister.
Yeah.
And so she was always very supportive, but she's also very different. Her gifts are totally different than mine, and so we were able to communicate on a level different than most people, but we're never able to get specific. Still this day, we're not. I mean, she understands me probably better than anybody on the planet, but it's still very lonely.
Yeah.
Until you get that community and that trust and that group.
Right. Right. So we met. This was just over a year ago, and you'd kind of just been like, I just felt like I was supposed to come talk to you. I feel like there's something that we're meant to do, and I'm like, yeah, we're doing it. I'm starting a men's group, and I'd love your help.
2 weeks before Bear Lake or something.
Yeah. Yeah, it was funny because you came and talked to me, and we hadn't talked about any of this. You didn't know anything of this at all.
I had no idea what you were doing.
And I was literally right on the verge of starting this, and so then we went up to Bear Lake. We talked to all the guys. I'm like, hey, this is what we're doing, and we started the men's group. Well,
and Bear Lake, just to give you kudos, that was groundbreaking for me, because that literally was what broke the cycle for me, to be around, so people know. I don't know if you've talked about it much, but we didn't know anybody. I mean, I literally knew no one.
Right.
And
it was a whole new group of guys.
For whatever reason, I was in such a good place because I was so broken. I remember sitting at that table and watching guys walk in, and literally within 15 minutes, we were having deep, intimate conversations with people that I literally just met 15 minutes before.
Yeah.
I mean, it was crazy, but it was because I was so ready, and obviously they were so ready, everybody. And it wasn't just me, it was everyone. We're sitting there an hour later, and we're looking around going, what in the hell's going on? I'm learning about innermost secrets of guys that they haven't talked about in literally an hour.
Yeah. Yeah, it's cool to just see that tribe come together, and it was so special at the time because it was nothing like we had ever experienced, up until that point. At least, I hadn't. And it was a really special weekend, but we've really upped the ante since then. The past year, I look back, and I'm a pusher, so I beat myself up for not going further a lot of the times. But when I really look back, that this has only been a year, and the bonds that we've created with some of the guys that have come into our group, that it's so clear that they are on our same frequency, that they get us. We get them. We see them.
It's so much more than that, though. It's so much more deeper. I mean, and I think at a point, and I guess I'm on a podcast, it'll be diluted to the point that you're talking about eventually. But right now, it is so pure. I honestly believe that what do you want to call them? The boys, the core, whatever we call them, the group. We have done this before. We have been together before. The minute you break through that barrier, it's like, oh, fuck, brother.
Yeah.
There you are.
Yeah, right.
I missed you.
Yeah, and we've talked about that a lot.
Yeah.
You know,
and it's that relief of, oh my God, that we're back.
Yeah.
And it's nuts. I've had camaraderie. I've had extremely close friends, that would have risked their life for me, and through the military and all kinds of stuff. Yeah, this is different. This is on another level.
And it's so interesting. You can't really understand it until you experience it. But we've talked about, and even since then, we started the group a year ago, just over a year ago, and it's been amazing. We've done our calls, we've done our guys' nights where we've got together. It's been special the whole time, but there's just been like those experiences that stand out. But
it's been hard. It's from you. I don't know. Me and Dust talked about this because we were the older guys. We would show up to your events, and you've got 15, 20 social influencers, guys that are just. I won't speak for Dustin. He's jacked.
Yeah.
Of course, Mr. Delight. But I'm like, why am I fucking middle-aged guy? What am I here for? I've done all that. I've been there. I've done everything they're trying to do. I don't need more rah-rah in my life. Time to coast till the end, Man, I was wrong.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely, because
I have got more than I ever thought I would get. And fuck, I look forward to every time, even when we just go to lunch. I just am so excited.
No, we all get together now, and it's like I don't want to go to work.
I know, it's so addicting, and that's why I'm so excited when we get in a big place together, because that's what the energy is going to have. It's just going to want to be. I mean, I'm sure a lot of wives will hate us, but it is a place where men want to be, not because of what it is, but because how it feels and how they feel when they're together.
Yeah,
it's interesting. Sorry.
Yeah, just the past year has been, it's been amazing, and it's been frustrating for me in a lot of ways too, because I am that pusher and I expect a lot out of myself. And to be honest, like starting the men's group did not get me out of the dark place. This dark place and these negative thoughts that I was having on a regular basis of not wanting to be here, I put a lot into starting the group of thinking that it was going to immediately pull me out of that dark place, and it didn't. And it wasn't until about 2 months ago that everything fucking changed. And it's so interesting because, we went through this whole process together, and there were so many of us that were struggling through this past year and like really deep in our shit. And then about 2 months ago.
Oh, almost the same. We were all going through the same
shit.
One of us knew it.
The same shit.
I mean, literally, me and Dust talked about it, and we're very close, and I had no idea.
Yeah,
I mean, he kind of knew what I was going through. Obviously, mine was a little more apparent. But.
Right, but we knew we were struggling, but it kind of took us, about 8 to 10 months to really get to know each other, to be able to open up enough to be like, hey, man, this is what I'm struggling with. And then we kind of went through that little period, where really probably was the lowest of the low for me about 6 to 8 months ago. I really got to the point, and this is kind of continuing with my story of once we started the group, my visions actually kind of went away, and I was teaching a lot about the Spartans. I had learned a lot. I had learned a lot from this collective that was teaching me about the darkness and the polarity of the universe, and the masculine and the feminine, the light, the darkness, the yin, the yang. And I was still in this fucking place where I just would wake up every day and just not want to be here. And it was about 6 to 8 months ago. I remember I was at my lowest, and starting the group I thought would change everything, and it hadn't in so many ways, even though I was so grateful, and I'd really started to build this camaraderie with this group, with so many of these guys that even I'd met just a few months ago and felt like I'd known for lifetimes. And I remember one day it really got to a really low place where one day I was just like, I can't fucking do this anymore. I'm done. Like, I feel like I should have been pulled out of this a year ago based on what I was told at the beginning, that I should be ready to really feel joy, to be happy, to not wake up and just have this onslaught of negative self-talk. And
So if the group had taken off, sorry to interrupt you.
Go ahead.
If the group had taken off and it had broke even financially, but you've been getting more growth, do you think that would have snapped you out of that? I mean, do you think you felt?
No, because it would have been the same thing with my house. Because it was external validation, and I had to go through that whole process too of like this group needing to be some sort of validation that I'm this leader of this men's group. Like I had to go through that whole process of like, no, this is going to be exactly what it's supposed to be, not based off of you putting some sort of external validation on yourself that you need to be this leader of 100 and 200 men. So I had to work through that whole process too. And that took me about 6 to 8 months and took me to this really, really low point. And it was an onslaught of everything, of basically, you know, my business really struggling, me struggling financially, me continuing to search for external validation, where I finally just got to this point where I just felt so worthless. And to me, that was my rock bottom. And I remember I was in my garage and I was just like, I'm fucking done. And I was actually just smoking a joint. And I was like, God, I'm done. I can't do this anymore. And it was at that point I actually felt these angels, like this army of angels surrounded me. And I kind of got the sense that, you know, these were more of my guides that were here to help me. And while the first being of that collective that was teaching me, this was very different because, you know, I felt like they were giving me information, like I was learning a lot from them.
Aliens, though?
Yes.
Oh, they were?
Yes, the first ones were. Well, they all are, but
They're identified as.
Yeah. And so, but then the second group, I kind of felt like, you know, they came in just right at that perfect time. And it was like, you know, they weren't there to give me information. They were simply there to hold me and to love. When I was at the absolute fucking lowest point in my life, and I just felt, as I'm sitting in my garage, and I just feel this fucking army of angels just holding me and just supporting me. And, you know, the message came through like very clear, like, we're here, keep going. And that was a pivotal moment for me at the time too, of like, I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. You know, as dark as this is, I have to experience it on some level to become whoever I'm supposed to become, to do whatever I'm supposed to do.
That's exactly. See, that's what there was one other thing I've never talked about that happened. And yeah.
I want to hear this. When did it happen?
Exactly the same time that was happening to you.
Yeah, because I know you were at the low point about the same time as me.
And that's the thing. So I'd gotten a job, and it was, you know, once a month we got paid. Once a month, was it once a month? Yeah, or every other week, I can't remember. Anyway, so I'd been working for like 6 weeks and hadn't got a check yet till the cycles catch up. So I got my check, it hit my account, and I'm like, okay, we can breathe. You know, a few $1,000. I'm like, all right, we can pay the bills, we can get it current, we can buy groceries, we're good.
Yeah.
I was at the store buying groceries, wanted to pay, my credit card or my debit card got denied. I'm like, what the fuck? You know, so of course the most humiliating thing ever, you gotta like, oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Because I didn't have another one. I didn't have like, oh, let me get my credit card. I didn't have that. So I had to say, yeah, sorry. So already in you know, one of the most public humiliating situations ever. I don't know, for most people probably not, but it's always my worst nightmare.
As a man, it's pretty humiliating.
So I had to walk away and, you know, my bank's like across the street, so I walk over there and, you know, my first check, I think it was like $6,500, and it had gotten taken by the IRS for some bullshit. I didn't even know I had a lien.
They just reached their hands in your account and took it all.
Yeah, they took it all.
Fuckers.
And, well, so that relief went to fucking, thank God we made it, to...
like this huge fucking relief to like,
I can't do this
nope.
another 30 days. I literally, I said, I physically, I drove home, you know, seen Vic when I got home. She knew something was wrong. Went straight to my room, closed the door, and just wept. I was just physically, emotionally done.
Yeah.
I had given it everything. And for the first time in my life, I was done. I went and got my gun. And I thought I was going to be done. And you know, now I look back, I don't know. I wasn't ready in my life, but I think at some level I needed to know what it was like. I needed to be at that spot.
Yeah.
Where I knew that I had physically given up. I had reached the end of I mean, literally, with military training and a lot of stuff I'd done in my life, I've been in a lot of tough situations physically, and I've never reached that point where I felt like I had to give up. I always had enough to make it through the class, make it through the course. So I'd literally never been there, and I didn't realize that. I mean, and it was a very unique experience for me because I needed to be that because it humbled me, because I realized for the first time in my life that I am no tougher. I am no better at this than any other human out there.
Yeah.
We will all, at some time in our life, get there. If we need to be. I don't know if everyone needs to be, but I did. And it changed my life. It literally, from that moment on, I have not been able to think the same way about myself or about other people either.
Yeah.
And that needed to happen. So, looking back, it did. To do what we're going to do and to do whatever is coming up, I needed to reach that part and learn that about myself. And I thought, you know, 50-something years old, you kind of think you know yourself. You kind of think you know your limits. You kind of think you know who you are. And nope.
Yeah.
Not so much.
Yeah, and I'm sure
we are in love with the version of us that we like. It's not the true us. But
yeah, the part that we
fall in
attach
love
to,
with
the identity that we create.
So I had to shift, and I had to redo my whole identity, and I started to build my identity from the ground up without assumptions because I had none. So I literally got the opportunity, which I am blessed, is I've got to build the man I am now from a skeleton, from nothing.
Yeah.
And cherry pick the pieces I liked and work on the pieces I didn't, and take the pieces I didn't like and take them out and look at them, admire them, beat the shit out of them, get beat up by them. Sometimes it didn't work my way. Figured out whether or not I wanted them. Some things I left behind, a lot of things I left behind. Slow learner.
Yeah, me too.
This is shit I should have taken care of in my 30s. This is shit that I should have. I think most normal people have a very easy process, and they do it gradually through the years. And I can imagine parts the same way. We hit this pace and they're 18, 20-year-old, and we're like, fuck, we got this. We fucking nailed it. And we just continue to beat our heads against the wall for 20 more fucking years.
Yeah, the timing wasn't right. Yeah. Well, it's funny because you talk about us all being like going through the same shit and being in the same place. And this is, since you opened up about that, I'll tell a part of my experience that I left out, which was that day before I went down in the garage to smoke weed.
Well, there's one thing I got to finish about that.
Yeah, go ahead.
So I instantly, I called Vic, said, call Bernice. I said, call my sister. So she did. She came down. Of course, she's Bernice.
Yeah.
So, yeah, but I don't, that was a very unique experience for me. So I wanted to give my sister kudos because her and my wife, they're the two people I will call.
Yeah, because my mom is a medicine woman for sure, through and through. But yeah, I mean, we talk about going through the same shit, and it was a very similar experience for me. I was like, I'm fucking done. I don't want to do this anymore. And I've never been suicidal I've never like planned anything out. But I did. I was like, I want to know if I'm continuing to have these thoughts of not wanting to be here, then let's play this out a little bit. I want to know what a gun tastes like in my mouth.
That's
and so
exactly
so I took my 1911, I loaded it up, I didn't have any intention of pulling the trigger, but I kneeled down by my bed and I said, okay, if this is what you want.
I can't believe we haven't talked about this. Yeah, I didn't either. I never one time knew I was going to do it. I never had any intent to do it, but I just, at some level, understood that I needed to know.
Yeah. It's the same thing for me was, okay, if you are continuing to have these thoughts of wanting to kill yourself, then
Did you think
kneel
you were-
down by your bed,
Before
load
that-
your gun up, put it in your mouth, and see what it tastes like.
Before that, did you think you were incapable? If someone asked you, you said, I couldn't take my own life. Did you have that thought ever? Because I did. You asked me, I just said, no, I couldn't do it.
I don't think I ever would. Yeah, I don't think I would ever do that.
I'll tell you what, that's my point, I guess, is I don't think I ever would before that, but after going through that, I know that I could.
Well,
That's the difference, is I realize that things could get that bad. And I think at some level you needed to have that empathy for people that get there. And I don't.
yeah, me
understand
and
it.
Sean talked about this last week on the podcast was because you're right. Eventually, if that had continued, yes, I would be capable of doing it. And now I do have an understanding of why men do. And I have compassion and I have empathy for why someone would pull the trigger.
Yes, and I didn't have that before. I always thought that they were
Selfish.
Yeah. Anyway, I don't know what I thought, but it wasn't, and it changed. It definitely changed once I was in that position. Obviously, it would for anybody.
Yeah. It was in a sense a rebirth for me because I kneeled down by my bed. I put the gun in my mouth.
Do you think it was? I'm sorry, I'm just thinking about this. Do you think it was a symbolic of us of the when
That's
actual ego?
that's the
finally
way
died?
that I was looking at it. So I knelt down. I put the gun in my mouth. I wanted to know what it felt like, and my thought process was, today this person dies and we become someone new. And
I've never really thought about it that way with that one because I'd been doing so much work before that.
yeah,
Maybe that makes sense though because I really thought my ego was dead. Maybe it wasn't.
for me it was a very symbolic thing because I wasn't ready to pull the trigger.
No,
I wasn't to that point, but I felt like I
it scared
understood
me
it.
enough to know that I was willing to go through the motion.
Mm-hmm.
That it got my attention.
I remember like leading up to this, like actually thinking about it on a regular basis of what a gun tastes like in my mouth. And that scared me. That scared me that those thoughts were crossing my mind. And so
I guess I realized how easy, just on a whim, on a one bad day, one bad thing, one circumstance.
if you're at a low
can
enough
go your
point
way.
and you're suffering enough and you're done,
'Cause
I
we think,
get it.
Right. We think it takes so much years and years, but it's not. You could be at survival level for years and be fine. And then
Yeah.
one bad day.
Yeah, so for me, it was in a sense a rebirth, and then a couple months later, we went through we did the 90-day challenge with all the men in the group, and at the end of the 90 days, and it's interesting because you look at those 90 days, right?
Yeah.
Those 90 days, I think we were at just about at our lowest.
What do you remember? So was I last? I think I was pretty close. I was like fifth or sixth. So I was like in the last part of that, my part of it. Do you remember? And that I was sweating that for weeks.
Your last part of what?
When my part of it, when I had to kind of coach and lead.
Oh yeah.
I was like, man, you are not worthy. You just don't.
Mm.
Why would they listen to you? You literally were just about ready to end it. Like 30 days ago. What the fuck are you going to tell these guys? I don't honestly remember what I said, to be honest with you, but it gave me enough motivation. Like, yeah, you better get something, fucker.
Yeah.
You'd better not let your men down because they're looking up to you and you're the elder.
Yeah, and I remember it was great. It was amazing, and it was great that all that stuff came up for you because then you got to see it and change the paradigm on it.
Well, it's the first time ever that I've actually been clear enough to identify what was really the issue and to be sober enough to actually identify the difference between conscious world and everything else.
Right, rather than running from it and suppressing it.
Exactly. Every time I get close to it before, I was just content knowing it was there. Like, oh, there's the door.
Yeah.
I'm not going in, but there it is.
Yeah. Yeah.
Where's my whiskey?
Shit. Yeah. So we did a 90-day challenge, and then we went out in the desert, and this was literally just 2 months ago.
Was that 2 months ago?
Yeah.
Holy shit. That was May, right?
I think it was June. We're not even. No, it must have been May. It must have been.
Yeah, seems like months ago.
Yeah, so we went out in the desert. There was just 11 of us guys that were able to make it, but we ended up taking shrooms and had one of the fucking best nights of our lives. And it was this shift of like everyone realizing that we no longer needed to carry our cross, that it was a choice, that we could choose to be happy, that we could change our internal state first.
I never put, yes, that is right. That was
the shift for everyone, was realizing that carrying your cross is a choice.
And I was thinking more on the emotional level, though. That was where the time is, we kind of became inseparable. That's where, like,
yeah, that was the shift for everyone.
I got to get everybody together. What's going on? Where's the alien?
Yeah, we had a cool experience trying to call in aliens at 2:00 in the morning. Yeah, seriously, just one of the best nights of our lives. And we've got 2 fires going. Everybody's like taking their shirts off, running around without our shoes. Like,
well, and it's a common theme, I think, with us, but we stumbled on a very sacred place, a very special place down there.
Yeah. Yeah, we found just the perfect spot with this little like hole in the rock that was like a portal that it fucking changed everyone's life.
That had been a place of counselor for thousands of years. Like, you could feel it once you look back. It was waiting for us. So yeah, it set the perfect tone. Yeah,
and now like looking at like all the things that night has opened up. On that trip, like. It was interesting. Me and Dustin were just walking around, and he was telling me how every time he looks at me, he sees a Viking. And I'd never thought about Vikings up until this point. I'd felt connected to the Spartans at the beginning of starting the men's group. And then I kind of lost like those visions that I was having, that connection to some sort of a past life, parallel life, whatever you want to call it. And then we started talking about Vikings on that trip. And since then, I've started to have some pretty fucking crazy experiences, and it has not just been me; it's been all of us. We're starting to connect to these lives that we've lived before, where we've done this or something similar or something that was preparatory to this life.
Yeah, you pay attention to it's in sync with everything that's going on with the new energy and everything that's coming out. It's just fascinating.
Right. Yeah. So recently, I've been connecting to these Vikings, and I feel like they've started to give me some information, and I've seen us on a Viking ship together, training, and in a sense, almost living these lives that I believe were preparatory lives to what our mission in this life is. And because I feel like the time that we're living in now is, people call it the Great Awakening. And it feels to me like the most important time up until this point in Earth's history.
Let me ask you this. This has just been kind of coming up with me the last couple of days. Have you ever felt truly, now that you have that sense of total belonging, what it feels like to be, I'll speak for myself. When we're together, it doesn't matter what we're doing. If we're just working out, there is such a sense of 1,000% acceptance or love.
Yes.
Literally, I could probably walk up to any one of you guys and just lose my shit, punch Dustin in the face, and you guys would all put me down, but I would wake up unconscious, but like, oh shit. Okay, guys, what the fuck just happened? There's that sort of level of trust and love, because I know that whoever I am, whatever I do, whatever I say, it's 100% okay there in that space.
Yeah.
And that's something that it's priceless. There's nowhere on this world that you get that anymore.
Unconditional love.
Unconditional love from other men.
Yeah.
And it's not reciprocatory, it's not transactional.
Right.
It is what it is. And that's why I know how bad I could fuck up. It wouldn't matter. You guys would still, I would pay the price, but I'd be taken care of. I'd be fixed. I'd be
Yeah.
whatever, treated.
Yeah, I've felt that.
Whatever. And I'm not, that's just a very extreme example, but I don't have any, I mean, do you feel that same thing?
I feel the exact same way because a big part of me is just like, where I'm at in like being out of shape, right? Where always in the past, I've felt like this, like
is this a test?
No.
You're trying to get me to call you fat.
No.
Fat shaming. Okay, because I can. I've been trying not to the whole time.
No, what it is for me is like in the past, it's more, I felt more, I guess, judged, by different groups of people. And with this group, it's like full acceptance of where I'm at with a 100% commitment of every man there wanting me to get better.
Well said.
And I think you understand that because I know you
I'm
felt
your
the
uncle,
same
so
way.
I get a free pass. I can say what I want to you.
Well, and we've created that bond now where, and I feel it very strong. And that there's also like different perspectives of it that have come in to help me with it.
Well,
right. Where there's Dustin, who I just feel total acceptance and total love. And he I can feel so strongly from his heart that he wants me to get to this place. And then there's you, who's the other side of it, who you're my uncle and we have that relationship, and I can feel fully that I'm fully accepted where I'm at, but you fully want me to reach my potential. And it's just a theme that I've felt with every man in the group, that I love you no matter what, but I'm also going to tell you the truth of what you can do.
Well, not only that, we'll tell you the truth, but we need your higher self.
Right.
And that's the difference, I think, with timing now. Is before, didn't matter. You had the potential. You didn't need it. Now, it's needed. With all of us, not just you. I did not want to pick on you, although I probably should. A little bit. Slap that donut out of your hand. It is. We're out of time, and I think we are going to have to be, not have to be, but we have been, God, so cliche. We have been training for this for thousands of years. We have been through battles. We have been through the core group of guys, and we have weeded out the weak. We have weeded out the weakness of mind. We've weeded out the weak of emotion, and we have got a group of warriors. And these warriors are here for a time, and that time is now.
Yeah.
And that place is here. So whatever you're building, I don't even know who they are because they're not all here yet.
Right.
But you're putting out the call.
And this feels to me like the very beginning.
It is. It will be the main, but it's also for you. It's time.
Yeah. Yeah.
So whatever the issues are.
Well, and that's the thing too, is like the message that I've got pretty clear is like, we can't fail anyways.
We won't.
Right. And I put a lot of faith in that.
Can't, like, not able to.
Yeah. We're not able to fail.
No, I agree. But
not.
the other thing is too, we can still be distracted.
Yeah.
And we can still take longer, and we can be more inefficient than we need to be. And I think my point is, we all know better.
Well, I think it's bigger than that even, because I don't necessarily like this feels so deeply like destiny to me that it's not that, because time doesn't necessarily really matter that much in what we're doing. It's that we don't need to suffer longer than we need to suffer.
Right. Suffer has a purpose.
So like for me, that's where it is with me like getting my body to a place where it needs to be. It's like, yeah, okay, maybe I can't fail, but I am only at this point choosing my own suffering.
Are you in love with suffering right now?
To some level, I must be.
You're loving the shit out of it.
I mean, that's kind of been the theme for me.
Theory, though, if you think about it, that everything in that context, we do become in love with our own suffering to a point. Like, take my alcohol.
It's you're carrying your own cross, because
I knew it was killing me the whole time, and I enjoyed the living shit out of it.
Mm-hmm.
I embraced it with two hands. And that being said, this is a funny I've never really thought about. I have thought about it, but Dustin was my best friend the whole through this. And so every time I'd get together, he's never been out of shape. He literally eats right. He does it all. And I could tell, and that's what's so special about him. Sorry, Dust, I probably don't like me talking about you, but and the whole time I've been fat, drunk, out of control, 100 pounds overweight, and he never not loved me, never judged me, never said one goddamn word to me the whole time, ever.
Yeah.
But literally, when I'm like, a few times I'm like, Dust, I need some help. Boom, he'd be right there. Hey, do this, eat this. Here's your workout. I'll come help you. I'll do something. So, I mean, it was just that true, non-judgmental love that I didn't even recognize really until now, but it's always been there. And it's probably the same with a lot of different people in my life that I just never really focused or realized, and then they just went away.
Yeah.
Or I pushed them away.
Yeah, for sure.
Very distraction, but.
Yeah, no, I agree, but it's interesting too that we've kind of turned this corner of understanding that, any cross that you're carrying, you're choosing.
Well, I think my point was interesting too, but the group that we've kind of lionized, and it's kind of organic how they weren't chosen. They just kind of came because we're probably a third of what we started out with. Yeah. And we weeded out about a third or 2/3.
Yeah, since the very beginning, because we did have a decently big group of guys come in, and it's, to me, this first year has really just been building the leadership of the group, and we've seen that so clearly, because what we're about to do with starting this headquarters, I believe, what I see in my vision is this is a very small group compared to what we're going to be bringing in, and we'll be bringing people in, and they'll be coming and going, and we'll continue to build the core group. But
the fascinating part too is you probably don't notice it, but not one of them, because I've had conversations with 2 or 3 guys, and they're like, I really don't know what I'm going to be doing. I don't know my purpose. I don't know how I fit in, and it's an insecurity because we're watching. You got a plan, Dustin. Obviously, in fitness, health, he's killing with that, and the philosophy professor. They've been very clear niches that have been filled. And then there's a periphery of guys that were out here like, I don't know where we fit in. Yeah. But slowly, one by one, those boxes are opening up like, oh, check, there he is. Come here. Here's your spot. Alien. Get over here,
Yeah, and what's interesting is recently, since really it's been like the past week, I've had a bunch of guys reaching out to me that were new, a lot of new guys, but also a lot of guys that were there at the very beginning and were like, hey man, I'm ready to get back in. Yeah. And they just, sometimes they just need that time away. I think time of isolation can be very valuable. But yeah, it's been fun.
I want to talk about one thing before we get too distracted. I told you I kind of had, an epiphany. But the storytelling aspect of what podcasts are and what If originally we wanted to, help men have a safe space, and I don't like the word cure, but to give men the opportunity to heal in the environment where they can heal, it's kind of really become evident, and my sister's probably laughing going, yeah, no shit, dumbass. But men in this modern age, me included, that's why this was a big deal. I didn't want to do this podcast, and I truly didn't understand why at first, but I kind of do now. We don't have a platform where we can share our story on a regular basis. And part of the healing process has always been, for thousands of years, is a warrior goes to battle. And it's an interesting distinction, too, because most of our warrior stuff is focused on guys that have been seeing combat. I was prior service. I served for 9 years, never seen any combat, never got deployed. So I've always had that. I've never even told people that I'm a veteran or that I served because I don't want recognition for it, because I don't feel like I did anything. I fucking trained a ton, but I was never tested. I was never really put into battle to see what I can be. And I feel like that was an important part of the process that I didn't get the ability. And it's naive, now who the fuck wants to go to war if you've actually been to war? Yeah. But it's part of the process. And I guess my point is, so there's a lot of different types of warrior, and our society has created environments where it's almost as bad as going to war. Marriages, there's. I feel like my first marriage was very long.
Yours was for sure.
And I think a lot of guys. I've talked to a lot of guys that had the same thing, So I don't want to belittle what the real guys that see active combat do, but I do think my point is there's a lot of situations in common life and normal life where we come up and we have a level of PTSD and we have a lot of trauma that we don't get to deal with because the environment that men are put in, shut up, stick it down,
man up,
be okay. Just like you talked about earlier, you had all these emotions, but you're always taught like, no, get up, act like it's okay, act like there's nothing there. So my point being is, yes, and I think that's actually good or necessary to a point. But there comes a point where every man has to tell his story. Native Americans did it through their councils in the sweat lodges.
Yeah.
Spartans did it. They were together all the time. They told stories over the fire, over the dinner. They always have a place where you can be in that secure environment. And that's what brought this up, is we have that. We have an environment, and every one of us take advantage of it, knowingly or not, where every intimate story about those guys in our group right now. We know them. We know them intimately. We know them better than their wives and mothers do.
Yeah.
And that's an important part of it. And that's why we've gotten to the point where we have that level of trust. So a big part of what I think we're trying to do, and I think it needs to be brought out, is we're going to have that kind of environment where men can be safe. Men can come and they can cry. They can fight. They can do whatever they need to do to tell their story, because a lot of men communicate very differently. So I think it's important that process is a big part of this group, is we're going to put a place or have a place where those men can tell their story, because it's isolation. You come back from war, you get isolated, find out who you are. You have the opportunity to tell your story, to define what war or whatever battles you've been to and who they made you become.
Yeah.
And then you have a chance to become someone that is willing and able to go back into society and be a productive member of it again. And we've never given men that chance. We've never had that part of the culture, even after divorce or even after a lot of traumatic experience, a loss of a kid, a loss of anybody. We don't have a process in this culture where it's, okay, you need to go isolate, grieve, figure out who you are now, become that person, own it, and bring that person into society and let us meet him.
Yeah.
And that's a very special part. I think I love it. The podcasts have been an important part of that. I mean, we all listen to podcasts because there's men telling their, and women.
Right.
I want to isolate it just a minute.
Yeah.
But there's people telling those story, and we're like, yes, and we're giving them that acknowledgement. Great battle. Good job. We appreciate the struggles you went through. Thank you. Let it go.
Right.
Welcome back to society.
Yeah, and we support you through this whole process.
So, I mean, it's interesting. That kind of just clicked for me, is that storytelling process is a lot of what we have missed, or I specifically missed. I've never been able to sit down and tell my story from day one. Or, that's not true. Yeah, I could have a lot of times, but it would have been whining. It would have been complaining. It wouldn't have been productive for me.
Yeah.
And you have to get to a point. So I guess it's important to define that you have to be in a place where it's the right time and the right place and the right environment to tell your story, to make it cathartic and to make it and overcome it and actually have a healing process. But, it's a big deal with these podcasts. And I think also with our group is everyone there has got a chance to tell their story.
Yeah.
And that's how you develop that level of trust. And I think as we scale up, it's a very important aspect of it. And when we get the headquarters going, is that's going to be that place. That's going to be a very sacred hive, for lack of a better word, that where men can come and be safe. And it's important that they understand that. We're going to protect that. And if you violate that, there will be consequences.
Yeah.
And that's important. And there won't be any written rules, but there will be
an understanding.
You will know them. And as soon as men walk in, they will know that.
Yeah.
And I don't think there ever has to be. Any warrior society has a very large amount of unwritten rules.
Yeah. Right.
And if you don't understand them, then you will get kicked out of the society. But most men naturally understand them. So I don't know. That was kind of a tangent.
Yeah, no,
but I kind of want to get off
I'm
the
fully on board.
The storytelling part, and that's why that was so hard for me. But now that I'm here, this is what it's going to be for me. This is my chance. I'm going to tell it, and I'm going to shut the fucking door on this story. I'm going to live my new life.
Yeah. Yeah, well, it's interesting, too, because, you look back at times when you maybe could have told your story, but it also takes a level of openness of, to be seen, because it can be scary.
Well, yes, but the other thing, too, is, for me, this isn't the gate to get into this, but, when it's a divorce story, there's two sides of it.
Yeah.
And me telling my side would have been more damage to my kids and my loved ones than it would have been worth. It might have been cathartic for me, But I would have opened up so many other wounds of the other part of it that I don't know if it was truly worth it. But anyway, that was my whole thought process. And during that process, I learned how important it was. I was shown how important it was to be able to have a safe place. And that's why when we talk about this group of guys, I'm fucking like, I just got goosebumps right now thinking about doubling it, tripling it, and having, that many guys I can call and say, hey, what the fuck, dude, I'm having a bad day. Because I get those calls. I love them.
Yeah.
I mean, I never before have oh, God, look who's calling me. No, I'm like, fuck yeah, he's calling me. He needs me. I'm like, yeah, what do you need? Where are you at?
Yeah.
You want me to come over?
Yeah.
I'll bring the mushrooms. Let's go. I mean, it's cool. I don't know. I'm a very social person in controlled circumstances.
Yeah.
I pick those. But I've never been this open all the time. And it's bled over in my work. It makes me a better safety director. It makes me a better husband, makes me a better father.
It makes life so much more enjoyable,
it does,
too.
Because I didn't realize how closed down I was to all the joyful things.
Yeah.
That all you have to do is pay attention. They're right there. So, all right,
yeah, I 100% agree. And I love the whole storytelling thing and, men having the opportunity and the space to be seen by someone that they don't feel they're going to be judged by, and so, yeah, the podcast, I'm really excited to get like maybe 5 or 6 of us once we get into the headquarters and we set the
I
whole.
thought about that the other day. I can't wait to do a core group with everybody.
Do some mushrooms again on the podcast.
Of course, we have to.
Yeah.
But, oh my God, if we could have recorded some of the shit that was said during those.
I know.
I don't know. That's a double-edged sword. Some of that shit, we'll keep that in the dark for a while.
There are definitely things that are said that are private.
That's what makes it fun, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, yeah, I've been excited to bring you on the podcast and have you tell a little bit more about your story. And, before we wrap up, I just wanted to, that's it. Yeah, this has been a while. This has probably been the longest one, but I just wanted to thank you.
I literally thought we were just getting going. Thank you, nephew.
Yeah, it's been an interesting process for me, and our relationship is, when I was losing my dad, it was really special. And I look back and I'm so fucking grateful that I had strong men in my life, that I had, uncles that really stepped up to the plate, and you were one of them. You and Brent especially. Taking me snowmobiling, taking me dirt biking, making sure that I was getting out and doing the things with the guys. We'd go snowmobiling, and we called it Church on the Hill, and you guys would talk to me. You would talk to me about girls and sex and drugs and
trying to get you to do maintenance on your machine.
Yeah.
That came up a lot.
Yeah, but you guys really fucking stepped up at the time, and it meant so much to me. We've talked about it a little bit, but also just having you come back into my life at this point, when I was really at my lowest, and you coming to me and being honest about where you were at felt like such a time of like, I'm not alone, because before you came and talked to me, I felt very alone. And so your willingness to open up to me and be vulnerable helped me through in such a way that, I've looked back at that conversation that we had, and it's been so clear to me that my dad sent you, and I know you felt that as well, that, the time that I needed you to really come into my life and for us to build this relationship has been so special.
Well, I've never told you guys that, but your dad did have a conversation with me at the end.
Yeah.
And we were not close. Me and your dad's, our relationship, I don't know how to explain it. We had a very fair understanding of each other. We didn't dislike each other, but we also knew the limits of our relationship because we were so different.
Yeah.
But because I was so close to your mom, and he knew that he was always very respectful of that relationship. And we got along, but at the end, it wasn't an easy conversation for him because we've talked a little bit about it and how you felt. Because I kind of agree with you. I kind of feel like it could have been a different ending to that story. but he chose that. And, you know, I've always been close to you guys. I love being around the family because, you know, you boys were like it was fun. You're wrestling, you're fighting. I mean, that was,
Yeah.
You're McFarland's. You know?
Yeah. We all like the same shit.
Yeah, we all like the same
we
shit.
We all like to have
rode.
fun.
And
Yeah.
there's not a lot of people where that's the case. So I was always very close, and we did a lot of stuff. Because your dad, too, we all snowmobiled and rode together. First time, I'll never forget, I'll tell this quick story. First time I ever met him, we were on a camping trip, and he shows up down Goblin Valley with a badass I-2 490 desert bike. I was probably 14 at the time, you know, so I was riding pretty good, but I had a little KX80. I wasn't into that, but I loved that bike. Anyway, the first day he wrecked it, broke his, he broke something collarbone or something. So
Yeah.
He couldn't ride again. That was the first time I met your dad. The bike was way too big, and I don't really know if he ever rode it before. It was his, because I know it stayed in my garage because I stole it from him afterwards.
Yeah.
Because it was at our house a few times. I actually got pulled over with it from the Farmington cops. Anyway, sorry. He did ask me to take care of you guys and watch over you. And it was never needed. I would have done it with pleasure. But it did add extra importance and sincerity. Because you guys you're just as, you know, I don't know if I don't feel like you're my sons, you're a little old. But brothers, maybe. I don't know. It doesn't feel like nephew. Same with Keaton. We've always been close. And to have two powerful men, and your brothers, Cade and Cameron, are all very special and powerful men. And it's just been a joy to watch them grow up. But especially last year, to reignite our relationship and to get close to you and be part of this thing you're building. You've changed so many lives already, and you're just getting started. And it is truly one of my most sincere blessings in my life to be part of this. And I fucking can't wait. Let's fucking go.
Let's fucking go.
Fucking go.
We're just getting started.
I know. So exciting. So thank you for letting me be part of it, and thank you for the continuing joy that it will bring both of us.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm super excited about where we're going with this, and it's just been so cool, just all the synchronicities that have brought us to this point, you know, because like I said, you came really back into my life. Not that you were ever...
I didn't realize until now that they were that synced up.
Yeah.
I mean, you look at...
Yeah, it's interesting, huh? Yeah, you really came back into my life in a deep way at just the perfect time, and so yeah, I'm just super fucking grateful for you, and I love you, and super fucking excited for what we're gonna do.
Thank you, nephew.
Yeah.
I love you. It's very special. I can't wait. And while we're on the air, thank you for mentoring my son.
Yeah.
You know, as you mentioned, I didn't know what the result of that would be. I had hopes, but it could have gone another way.
And it's been fucking amazing.
I didn't know how he'd receive it. You know,
Yeah.
It was his first big shot in a big bad world, and I didn't know. And you know, you guys, there's a few different theories and ways of doing things there, and it could have been any of them that he chose.
Yeah.
Which all would have been fine, but yeah.
Yeah, and I'm super grateful for that too. That you kind of brought him in, because now I get to hang out with him pretty much every day, and all we do is have fun. And I fucking love Connor. He's just such a good kid, and you know he's a huge part of this too. You know, even today, him and I were having conversations about God and the dark energy of the universe, and his understanding is just unbelievable to me.
That's a huge. So you know, with Jackson, with Haley's husband, to be able to have him in part of the group and watch him grow, and you know, learn from other men, it's just a huge blessing to my family in so many ways. And like I said, we're just barely getting going.
Yeah,
I've got two beautiful grandsons now that I fucking can't wait to get them involved and watch them start training.
Yeah,
Dustin, he's gonna be training them when they're 4.
Doing some jujitsu when they're little.
We're gonna have baby jiu-jitsu classes.
Yeah.
No, it's just so exciting and such a different aspect.
Yeah.
For me than it has been the past 53 years.
So here we go.
Let's go, brother.
Giddy up.
Fucking kill it.
All righty. Well, thanks everybody for listening, and we'll catch you on the next one. Peace.